Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio.
I think there's going to be a lot of male shallows, so it should be a really good opener.
Yeah, well, when it came out that I was one of the owners of the Alexandria Shooting Park, it kind of surprised me, too. Like, holy crap, look at this boat.
And you'll be fishing by yourself. You won't see any other boats.
I fish, I hunt, and always will. Broadcasting from the Prairie Sportsman Studios. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. We're not just a radio show anymore.
Heck yeah.
This is Sporting Journal Radio.
Yes, it is. Thank you for tuning in. We are excited because it all kicks off. It's almost like it's opening weekend or something like that.
Is it?
Almost like it.
Almost like it. Seems like it.
It's so much like it that it actually is.
No way.
Opening weekend. We're pretty excited about it. That's Dan Amundson over there. Dan, how you doing?
Doing great. It's opening day. I'm probably fishing by the time you're listening to this.
You probably
Unless you're watching it on Friday, then I'm definitely not fishing.
Not for walleyes anyway. That's David Eckhardt over there. David, how you doing?
Doing good.
All right. Thanks for joining us, fellas. Are you fishing this weekend, David, or are you farming?
Depends if it rains or not.
So if it's raining, you're going fishing.
Yeah, definitely going fishing if it's raining and too muddy to farm.
Yeah, and Dan is definitely going fishing.
There's no choice.
You might have to fish in the rain and the wind a little bit. It's probably going to be raining from what I've been hearing.
Yeah.
That's why God made rain gear.
That's right.
Well, God did make it, but he made people to make it.
He had a hand in it, we'll say. You guys are lucky. I get to work. I'm going to enjoy what we're doing. Like I'm going over to Horicon Marsh. We're going to be filming about the marsh. We're making a couple of trips over there this summer and this fall to talk about this kind of historic wetland in Wisconsin. There's a big birding festival there this weekend, so they wanted us over there to kind of capture some of the birding activities and things like that. So I'm going to be behind a camera, be seeing some pretty cool things. I think there's going to be a lot of waterfowl. There's
How's that going for you?
Well, it was going fine.
Didn't sound like it.
There's going to be some whooping cranes over there that we're going to hopefully get to see, you guys ever seen one of those in person before?
No, never have.
Gosh, I can't click the right thing.
How's that going over there, Dan?
Not good.
Jeez.
What as good as you speaking?
So we're hopefully going to see some cranes while we're over there, some whooping cranes and a bunch of other waterfowl and there's some rare species, shorebirds and songbirds and stuff like that. So we're hoping to get some of those on camera, but I definitely would, it's going to be fun, but I'm kind of jealous I'm not going to be fishing.
Well, at least there's only 365 days out of the year that you can fish.
Yeah, but this is opener. Anyway, it's going to be a good time. We're going to talk about the opener, give you some tips if you're going to be out there. Dan is struggling today.
I'm just so excited to go fish that I don't know which buttons to press.
There's so many buttons.
There are. And I rearranged them the other day. I don't know why. I don't remember why. Now they're all out of whack. So download the podcast. Don't watch it on YouTube this week if that's what you do.
We're definitely submitting this show for an award with a glow. By the way, if you're part of a glow or thinking about joining a glow, the registration for the annual conference is open. It's going to be in Bemidji this year. So if you're watching or listening to this, you're probably not too far away from Bemidji, within a few hours at least. And you can join us in September up there. We're going to be fishing and doing some other outdoor activities and learning more about outdoor content creation. Find out more at aglowoutdoors.com. All right, we got some tips for the walleye opener for you coming up with Randon Olson. We'll also talk to Joe Henry in a little bit. And then we're going to talk to Steve Gould. Got to see him at the gun fair at Rice Creek in Little Falls here a couple of weeks ago. And we'll get an update from him and talk about his YouTube channel. What is he doing? I think it's a great idea. We'll tell you what he's doing on his YouTube channel in just a little bit. But first, Dan, who are the sponsors this week?
This week we have OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. Live Target Match the Hatch this weekend with Live Target Lures. Go to livetargetlures.com. Lake of the Woods. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world. Book a trip or learn more at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Haybell Heights. Book a trip to Devil's Lake at Haybell Heights Campground and Resort.com. haybellheights.com. Al Claire Audio. Save your hearing in the field with Al Claire. Learn more at alclaireoutdoors.com. Ottertail Lakes Country. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. And Prairie Sportsman, the new season wrapped up but you can watch all of our episodes from this season and past seasons on the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. Yeah, I should change that because the new season did start in January. Now it's over. So
we are trained professionals, I promise.
Yeah, if we forget, what button do I press right now?
How are you doing? Should we just start the show over?
No. You've got to get on the... Hang on. You've got to get on the road.
Yeah.
So, no, we're not doing that. No. I'm just got to get better. Or we'll just throw in the towel and download the podcast. Don't watch it.
Or watch it. It might be one of the most entertaining podcasts you watch in a while from us.
I don't mean if you think... never mind. Yeah. Just move on.
So a lot of time spent on the road coming up, and a lot of time we'll be spending a lot of time on the road coming up. We spent a lot of time on the road in the past. And one of the trips we did actually to last year's Glow conference when we went down to Branson, we checked out the Wonders of Wildlife Museum. Jake Floss told me about it. They filmed with it with the Next Bite when it first opened back a few years back, and he made the comment to me, You're gonna want to go through it, and you're gonna want to go through it again. He said, I can't remember what the admission fee is. It's a little spendy to get in, but it's worth it. He said he would pay it every day to go back into it. And we did it and we filmed it. So if you want to see what it looks like before making a trip there, it's not going to be just go and see it. Take my word for it. You're going to love it. But we did a walkthrough video that you can watch right now on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. And what this is, it's the largest, most immersive conservation attraction in the world. It's in Springfield, Missouri. It's the Wonders of Wildlife. It's Johnny Morse. It's attached to the Bass Pro Shops there. And they had a museum there, and then they expanded it. It's now 350,000 square feet. It's unreal. It's got 35,000 live fish, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, and birds. I mean, there's penguins in there. There's an albino alligator. Dan, what do you remember? What were some of your highlights of seeing that place?
I just want to preface with saying, we've got this walkthrough video, and it's 9 minutes long. There was so much footage that we couldn't put in that video because the video would be like 8 hours long. Yeah. There's so much cool stuff to see. There's wicked taxidermy. If you like taxidermy at all, even if you don't like taxidermy, you might not appreciate it. But if you don't like taxidermy, I don't really know why you're listening to this show.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't.
But it's so cool. I mean, there's turkey mounts that just blew my mind. There's elk mounts. There's, I think, a caribou where it's got velvet coming off. Just mounts I've never thought you'd see. That wild sheep room. Yeah. Holy smokes! It's like it takes you through the nighttime on the mountains. It's a whole thing. You've got wind. You can hear the wind. There's smells they incorporate. The texture of the floor changes as you go from Africa to Arizona to wherever. The whole thing is just cool, and the aquarium is cool. I think it's been voted like best aquarium like 4 years in a row or something. I'm not a guy who's like, let's go to the zoo, let's go to a museum. This is an aquarium and a museum that I would absolutely go to over and over and over again.
It's a museum and an attraction for guys like us, guys and girls like us, like guys like us, girls like Dan.
Hey,
whatever.
And the other thing, you think of a museum, there's a lot to read. There is a lot of stuff you can read, but you don't have to read it if you don't want to. But a lot of it is interesting stuff to read.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. You can just go look at all this cool stuff.
Immersive is the best way. Just like what Dan described is exactly right. You walk into one room and the smells are completely different. You go into that room that he talked about where it takes you through the night, like the lighting changes to show you what that landscape looks like in a 24-hour cycle. Like it's unreal, and it's so big. And whoever the architect of this place is brilliant, because it takes you through, like when you look at it from the outside, it looks big, but it doesn't look like, once you go in, it's like, how did they get all this in here?
It's like a Willy Wonka factory or something.
That's a great way to describe it, actually.
Wild. It's so cool.
I mean, there's a huge whale hanging in one of the rooms. There's a real tuna boat. Johnny Morris's tuna boat's in there as part of a display, and it's got a hidden office inside the boat. So from behind the display, he can bring people in and have meetings in this boat, and it's got windows out into the museum where people are walking around out into the complex. It's
Hemingway's dream boat is hanging from the ceiling or something too. Just wicked.
There's a giant bait ball. There's like a 3-story aquarium with that. I mean, it's massive. And I know I've seen in other places, but the jellyfish or the jellies, as they call them, I mean, just the visuals in this place. And we try to capture as much of that as possible in this video on the Fish Hunt Forever channel, YouTube channel, which is dedicated to hunting, fishing, the outdoors, and conservation. And this one was an important one for us because Johnny Morris was a huge conservationist, and what he's done between there and Dogwood Canyon and some of the other places that he's used to preserve for wildlife and getting people to interact and learn. Like this place, Winners of Wildlife, they have field trips for students, educational classes, a lot of courses. You can go there and learn, not just walk through, but you can go there and be part of a class as well. And if you want to plan multiple trips, and we were kind of in a hurry, so we had to kind of rush through. We would have gladly come back the next day. They offer some discounts if you want to go a couple of days in a row. So it's very neat. Check out the video on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. All right. We want to talk a little bit about Minfish. Basically, right now, they have some money in the general fund, part of the surplus that they want to spend on boat ramps and some of the infrastructure, the fishing industry here in Minnesota. They want to hear from you, so if you've got a boat ramp near you that's in need of repairs, let them know. Yeah, comment below. We'll let them know, or get a hold of Min-Fish, Fishing Advocacy in Minnesota. All right, David, have you been out checking for morels or asparagus yet?
Not morels yet, but I have been checking for asparagus. The stuff in the garden has just started to pop through. So,
and it's usually just after that, pretty much.
4 or 5 to a week. Days later, the wild stuff starts going. So I checked some this morning and nothing yet. So midweek, next week.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
That's a fun time. I hate the tick situation. You end up getting into some ticks.
They're out already.
Yeah. Yeah, I picked 3 off the back of my neck the other day.
Yeah.
Like about 20 minutes apart. All of a sudden, there's another one on the back of my neck.
And then you're just crawling. Yeah. Once you find one, you think you got 100 of them on you.
Well, it's that time of year, which is why we just want to jump in a boat and get away from the grass and the woods and go fishing. You can do that. We got some tips for the opener for you coming up. We've got Joe Henry, Randon Olson, and we're going to talk to Steve Gould when we come back.
Live Target, the leader in Match the Hatch, is back with new lures that also match the action. Introducing the Live Craw. The Live Craw is irresistible to bass, walleye, and other freshwater species. FTech's winner, the Ultimate Frog, looks and acts just like a swimming frog. With an exposed ultra-point mustad hook and replaceable legs, the Ultimate Frog has 2 styles, 2 sizes, and 8 colors. And iCast and FTech's winner, the Live Shrimp, mimics a fleeing shrimp for saltwater anglers. Coming soon from Live Target.
This is Sporting Journal Radio. I'm Bret Amundson. Thank you for tuning in on the network, by demand, sportingjournalradio.com, or by downloading the podcast, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube. Thank you very much, along with Dan Amundson and David Eckhardt. And our guest now is Steve Gould. Steve, how you doing, man? Did I say that too fast for you,
man?
I can't switch that fast.
Cruising through all the camera angles. Sorry. Steve, how you doing? Let's try that again.
I'm better than the curve. Brett, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you very much. Good to see you last, what is it, a couple of weeks ago now, I suppose, at the gun fair. That's quite an event there at Rice Creek every year.
Yeah, it seems like it grows every year. Honestly, I travel the country going to different events, and this is still by far one of the coolest events all across the country. Yeah,
I'd heard about it. I think I've had you on the show to talk about it in the past, but this year was the first year that I went up there. Man, the deals that you can get on gear, not just guns, but I ended up buying a A-frame blind. And I just happened to be walking by. I'm like, oh, an A-frame. Oh, that's kind of cool. And literally within 30 seconds, I'm like, I'll take it. And
talk me into it.
Yeah, and it was his last one. He's like, yeah, this is my last one, and he had it for like half price off the retail, and I was like, oh my gosh, all right. And then I bought a layout line that was like half price, like the deals. I mean, it's not just 25% off or whatever. I mean, these were like half off deals, and I got a great deal on a gun, and I definitely went at the busiest time of the whole thing, and I did have to wait in a line for a little bit, but they had a couple of other options if you didn't want to wait in line. And I remember Steve coming around, and I came out to like where the shooting range was, and I started seeing people wearing ear muffs and ear protection. I'm like, wow, I was kind of surprised at that. And thankfully I brought my Alclairs with, because as soon as I came around the corner, I realized that you're walking by a lot of guns going off, and it gets pretty loud right there.
Yeah, and that's what I love about that event. I mean, an opportunity for people to get hands-on with all these different manufacturers, try out guns. There's nothing quite like it.
Yeah, and you guys put on a shooting, one of your shooting shows, your live shooting exhibitions, live trick shooting show.
There you go.
Get it right. At that event, and you've been doing that for a number of years now. I know I saw you on Saturday, and you had to do it again on Sunday, and they were calling for 40-mile-an-hour winds. How did that go?
Yeah. Oh man, it was quite the weekend. So for a lot of years, I did shows with my brother, traveling around doing these live exhibitions. And we've actually went different ways. Aaron's out flying airplanes now, pursuing his aviation career, which is what he went to college for. So I'm doing shows not at the level that I was or the rate that I was. I got a limit of 10 this year. I'm only going to do 10 as my kids get older. I love to be home. I love to be out hunting. I run the Alexandria Shooting Park. Got a lot going on. But Saturday was tough. Honestly, and you have this. It's live, right? This isn't a video. I can't take 2, take 3, get it right. I'm in front of a live audience, and things don't always go your way. And I think the hardest part about doing the gun fair is I grew up in Long Prairie, 24 miles down the road. So you look out in the crowd, you're like, oh, I know that person. I know that person. There's my parents. There's my in-laws. There's my best buddy, whatever. And when you have a tough show, you just kind of feel like, oh, I wish I did better. And then I found out the next day was going to be windier. So like Saturday was maybe 20, gusting to 20, 25, which is challenging enough. And then Sunday was supposed to be 40-plus-mile-an-hour gusts. And I was just like, maybe nobody will show up. Maybe no one will show up. And I'll just be like, I guess they didn't show up. I'll have to do a show. That didn't happen. People showed up. And surprisingly, I shot better on Sunday than I did on Saturday. I mean, it was extremely tough. Don't get me wrong. But maybe I had to be more dialed in, have that focus, knowing that it was going to be extremely challenging shooting conditions.
Well, maybe Saturday was good practice for you. You got a little bit of wind to deal with. And
North Carolina and South Carolina the weeks prior, and had great shows, in front of people that I may never see again. And then you get in front of all these people you're going to see again and have a tough one. It never leaves a good taste in the mouth.
Yeah, man. Well, it's cool. If somebody hasn't seen one of your shows, they got to go do it. I've actually got your YouTube channel playing on my monitor over here too, so I'm a little distracted because we did just see some. If you're watching this on YouTube, you saw some of Steve shooting there, and I'm watching some over here too. And I'm on your. I'm looking. First of all, I'm looking at the play button on the wall behind you, and as somebody that has got a couple YouTube channels, that's pretty cool. I would like to get one of those. When did you get that?
That one was from the Gould Brothers YouTube channel, and I don't know, we got that 5-6 years ago. And we kind of grew rapidly after that until all of a sudden our performance dropped to almost nothing mysteriously. Not big into conspiracies, but pretty sure we got a little shadow ban there. Then I started a new YouTube channel called Target Focus Life, and that took off, and that's been doing really well. I started that 2 years ago. We're at about 66,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
66. Way to bring me down a notch.
I'm just looking at it right here. It only shows me 66K, so you might be 66.9 or whatever. But no, that's great. And we talked about this a little bit at the show. What a great idea to review shotguns for a YouTube channel. That's the thing. Like, we just talk about stuff, and sometimes conspiracies. You're actually out there giving us some great tips on these shotguns, and we've definitely utilized your channel on some buying decisions. And then and I see the latest one is a Beretta A400 XL. We actually got Beretta A400s to go to Alaska with last year to shoot sea ducks. And before we did that, we watched some of your videos on the Beretta A400s to kind of learn a little bit more about them and what you thought about them. So I think that's a great idea for a channel.
Yeah, I mean, just to give people some in-depth knowledge, research before they go out and make a purchase decision. And when you look at pistols, rifles, I mean, there's a ton of people doing that and they do it well. But then when you look at shotguns, all of a sudden it's like, well, there's not much info about shotguns out there. I don't know why that is. So I just started reviewing shotguns, and it went really well.
I love the gun room, man. I see it in the background there too. It looks like, and then I'm watching. You're sitting in it in one of these videos that I'm watching right now too. I want one of those. I want one of those rooms.
A cool setup. Those secure wall panels really allows you to customize your gun room, move stuff around, and compared to a lot of the other brands, they're really reasonably priced. I've been real happy.
Yeah, that's great. Well, what do you got next for a review? What do you got next for the YouTube channel?
Oh, that's on the spot. So
how about this?
Sometimes.
Well, let me ask you this question: What making this channel and reviewing some of these shotguns? What are some of the things that you've learned? Has there been anything that's kind of surprised you about some of these guns, or is there, anything that you really, any gun in particular that you've really liked?
Oh, I like a lot of guns.
We all do, Steve.
Yeah, I haven't met one I haven't liked.
Right.
Which that's not true. But for the most part, when I review a gun, I'm trying to look at it. What are the pros? What are the cons? There's always a trade-off, right? So I might shoot a very low-dollar gun that I personally wouldn't want to shoot, but I don't want to sit there and be like, oh, this gun's crap and it's not worth anything. I just try to lay it out for what it is. Like, hey, this gun doesn't have the best trigger. It's a really heavy pull. The ergonomics are lacking. Whatever it is, we go through the different elements of a gun. Maybe it's got heavier recoil, but then I'll say, hey, but it's at a price point that's an entry-level price point. If that makes sense for you, I'm just trying to lay it out, and you guys get to make the decision at the end of the day. So one of the most challenging questions is someone will email me and say, hey, this gun versus this gun, which one? And all I really want to do is lay out, like, here's some of the considerations. I can kind of tell you what I might do, but that's not a right or wrong. It's so subjective. And so I just try to lay it out.
Man, and when you announced that you got the Alexandria Shooting Park, I was kind of, it took me by surprise. There's no question, but that's got to be like a 12-year-old owning Disney World, right? I mean, that's got to be, how cool is that? And where did that come from, and what are your plans for it?
Yeah, well, when it came out that I was one of the owners of the Alexandria Shooting Park, it kind of surprised me too. Like, holy crap, what did this do? We don't know how to run a shooting park. But, guys get together, they dream, they scheme, they talk about things for years. And I had talked with several different buddies. And through my course of travel, I've always kind of thought it'd be cool to have my own place. Yeah. Like, I go to all these cool venues. It would be awesome to have my own place. And so eventually it came to the point, it's like, hey, guys, if we're going to do something, we got to do it. So let's start looking for a property in the Alexandria area and do our research. And, maybe we'll build a gun range and retail and restaurant. We're dreaming big, all these different things. But then as I was doing my research, I just kept coming back to the Alexandria Shooting Park. I'd been out there many times, and they have great facilities. They are established. They have some of the biggest events in the country, like the high school championship trap shoot, that gets between 7,000 and 8,000 students over 9 days, and 30,000 people coming to Alexandria. So I was like, maybe they'd be interested in selling. Let's call them. And through a course of a couple phone calls, you'd be careful what you ask for. We own it.
We own it. You own it. Congratulations. It's a cool place. I've been up there for that high school championship, and it's quite the sight to see all those kids up there shooting. And I've said it, not to go on a tangent here, but I've said it a number of times, that whole Clay Target League, what a great way to introduce people to an outdoor type recreational event, but also to introduce them to guns and firearm safety at the same time, and to have it be as big as it has been when you're talking about kids, guns in schools, and not to have any incidents. I mean, it's really a remarkable story.
Yeah, it really is. When you look at it, it is, I believe, the safest high school sport there is, which is phenomenal. We all know that guns are a tool that's to be respected. They're powerful, and used improperly can cause a lot of damage, right? But bringing these kids up, giving them that exposure, mentoring and coaching, you got kids that are going to take that with them for a lifetime. They might become hunters. Maybe they were already hunters. They might be lifelong shooters. They might do neither as adults. But to have that background, I think is huge. And I'm not going to get political, but I think one of the issues we're dealing with in culture is that people are so far removed from the land, from nature, from a lot of these things, and they just kind of get a little disconnected from reality. And so I love any opportunity to get kids out hunting, shooting. Bird just flew into my window.
Whoops.
Sometimes the bird doesn't go.
That's great. No, man, I think you do great work. You know, keep up the good work. Keep up doing what you're doing. With the YouTube channel and everything else that you're doing. And I noticed it's not just a channel, but you've got, as you go into the like the description on your YouTube channels, obviously you've got some discount codes, some recommended products, some merchandise. You can book an event, a live show, have you come speak. And then you've got Target Focus Life Community. What's that all about?
Yeah, so that actually came out of a challenge. As a lot of opportunities, we see opportunities through our challenges if we're willing to look. And last year I got demonetized on YouTube for some unknown reason. I guess if you ask YouTube why you're demonetized, they won't tell you, no matter how much you really push. And basically they'll default to, well, you violated our harmful substance or dangerous products. Well, what did? What part of it? They wouldn't tell me. Anyways, I got really frustrated, and I realized how fragile being on a platform like YouTube can be, because it only takes one person to review your video and say, hey, nope, we didn't like it, and we're not going to tell you what it is, and a good part of your livelihood is gone. And so I created this community as a way that I could engage with followers. I could release content, and if YouTube ever goes away, I still have a base of people and community that I'm connecting with through that. So I always try to tell people it's all the content without the big tech censorship. And I try my best to really engage on there as much as I can. People can directly message me. I post all my content on there. We can create forums and open dialogue, live videos, all that.
We worry about that all the time. Because, we do have a TV show that's on broadcast. We have a radio show that's on broadcast on a bunch of stations. But we do so much on YouTube, and we've got, we're working on 3 YouTube channels right now, too. And and they're all outdoors related, and there's definitely hunting and guns used on them. So I'm waiting for the day. And I just had to reinstate my ads account, because they suspended my ads account and they wouldn't tell me why. So I had to go through the whole appeal process, and finally like, oh, congratulations, you're reinstated. Still no explanation. So I worry about that all the time. So I love the idea of having an outlet. We've talked about creating some sort of membership here, and whether there's a paywall of some sort or not, just having some sort of option for people to be able to continue to get our content without having to worry about censorship and YouTube and things like that. So what you got going on there, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's unfortunate we have to worry about it. I think YouTube is a tremendous platform that has so many amazing benefits, but it's reality that the people behind it aren't necessarily advocates for what we do and the values that we stand for.
Well, and so much now, and so much people like us creators rely on social media, and so much social media is moderated by AI or bots or people maybe with different opinions on our activities than they do. So it gets challenging at times. But Steve, keep up the great work. Again, why don't you tell us where we can find you online?
Yeah, anything Target Focused Life, whether it's on socials, YouTube, or my website, which is targetfocused.life.
Targetfocused.life. Steve Gould, thanks for the time today on the show.
Hey, great chatting with you guys. Take care.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties,
all in the palm of your hand.
The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. Devil's Lake is legendary, and this summer has been legendary for walleyes. Don't miss out. Call Haybale Heights Campground and Resort today to book one of their modern cabins on East Bay. The cabins are furnished with a full bathroom, kitchen, and all the amenities like high-speed internet and are clean following CDC guidelines. Staying at Haybale Heights gives you full access to a private boat launch, fish cleaning station, and beach area. Learn more at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. Plan your trip to legendary Devil's Lake today.
This is Sporting Journal Radio. I'm Bret Amundson along with Dan Amundson and David Eckhardt. And now we're going to go to Otter Tail Lakes country to check in with Randin Olson. Randin, how's it going up there?
Going pretty good. The clouds are starting to disappear. The sun's going to poke, and it's supposed to touch 80 today. So can't complain.
Well, we're recording this right before opening weekend, of course. Everybody's excited to get out there. How do you think opener's going to go?
I think we're going to have a really good opener. Just like always, we got so many lakes. We're going to have so many lakes. A few lakes are going to be post-spawn. Some are going to be kind of at the end of the spawn, all kind of stages of that. So we're going to have a wide variety of fish, and I think there's going to be a lot of male shallow, so it should be a really good opener.
Have you been doing any panfish fishing at all or been on the water at all lately?
We've been doing a little bit. Just me and my son have been going out. The crappie bite's been pretty good. They're kind of in those normal kind of ice out spots, kind of pushing into the mouth of those bays and waiting for that warmer water. So once you find them, it's pretty much game over. You're just catching a bunch. But it's been pretty good. So
what is the water condition? What am I trying to say here? What are water conditions like up there right now? Is the water high? Is it clear? What's it like?
So last fall we were a couple feet low. We just had the second summer in a row without a lot of rain. So last fall we were low, but we're back to basically normal, if not maybe a hair high. But I'd say we're pretty much normal. Waters are kind of typical for this time of year. They're cold and really clear right now. I'm seeing water temps anywhere from mid-40s to maybe mid-50s on some of the real small lakes, but most of them are hanging that 45 to 50 range. So water's really clear. That's going to set up well for a lot of people this weekend. I know a lot of guys get scared of clear water, but clear water actually helps.
Well, and I know a couple of warm days this week are probably going to warm those temps up even a little bit more for the weekend. But I've seen in years past when we've had later springs, typical, kind of like what we've had this year, it tends to be more of a crappie fishing opener for walleyes versus walleyes. Do you think guys, you think they'll be able to find walleyes without much problem, or do you think a lot of guys are going to go after crappies?
I think there'll be a good mixture, but the guys that put a little bit of work in, the nice thing about the late springs is it eliminates a lot of water on our lakes. If you got a lake with a creek or a river flowing into it, that's going to be a magnet for those walleyes. They're going to be there. There's no question about it. They're going to be around that river mouth somewhere, probably 12 foot or less. So that eliminates a lot of water, a lot of places to look. The cool thing is, with so many of our lakes, we got such great multi-species lakes, is you can go to one lake and you can do both. You can go chase walleyes. If that's not working out, you can go catch some bass for the catch and release season. You can go catch crappies. You can catch some northerns. We got all of that in each lake. So you've got a lot of options. You're not trailering the different lakes all the time throughout the day. So
yeah, it's kind of game on. It's different than in the fall when different hunting seasons kind of roll out. Oh, it's time to do this now. Now it's time to do this. It seems like for the most part, once, fishing opener is here, it's like, yeah, what do you want to do? Let's go do it. Are you typically more of a artificial guy or are you going to be trying to use some live bait this weekend, or what's your go-to, you think?
So shiner minnows, spot tail shiners are going to be tough. That's kind of been the story the last couple of years. I'm out there. It's why I'm in my truck right now, is I'm out looking for minnows. I love artificials. I just love fishing it. I love not dealing with the bait and all aspects of it. You have so many more options with artificials than live bait. But you got to have some live bait. You know, the shiner run, I've been out for the last 2 weeks looking for shiners, and we just started seeing a few come into a couple creeks, not even all the creeks. So the opener is going to coincide with that shiner run. And sometimes when you have that many minnows up in shallow water where you're trying to fish, sometimes you're better off to go artificial. You know, go to a crankbait or go to a plastic on a jig and just be the oddball in the group, you know. A lot of times that works out better than trying to match the hatch, because there's billions of those shiners up there and you're just throwing another one with a little jig head on it. So don't be afraid to be different. And if you can't find shiners, don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, I know the bait situation has been well documented lately. Like, it's hard to find bait in a lot of shops. Are the dealers stocking up there, or are they struggling a little bit too?
They're struggling too. They had a lot of winter kills last year from what I've been hearing in their ponds. So that's leading it to the big lakes, and you're kind of at the mercy of Mother Nature there. The conditions got to be right. The sun's got to come out. It's got to warm up. Those creeks got to get to that 50, 55 degree range before those shiners will kind of push in. And the lake's got to be getting close to that too before it really happens. So, and if you are going to seine your own minnows, make sure you go through the rule book and just make sure you're doing it legally. You know, you can't seine out of any infested waters. You have to make sure your waters that you're seining out of are clean. You can only transport 12 dozen or less without a bait license. So just try to do it right. And, there's other options too. There's a lot of creeks around here that have like golden shiners, river shiners, sucker minnows, things like that. So if you put a little effort in and look around, you can get some of your own minnows. But just be careful about it.
Yeah. What's your method for trapping minnows?
I'm a seining guy, so I like to find them in the creeks. A lot of times I do it myself. And it takes a while if you're going to do it yourself, just to kind of learn how to do it. If you got a buddy, that's going to help you a lot. But I like to kind of corral them up and try to get them all, as many in one shot as I can. So the cool thing about minnows is you can get some in the morning, you can come back in the afternoon, get some more, and you can come back in the evening and get some more generally. So once they start running, it's kind of game on.
Yeah, so you don't need to get a huge pile every time you go out there.
Right.
Randon, what's your process for keeping those minnows alive after you trap them? Like, do you have a bait tank, or how do you, like, I can't keep a shiner alive to save my life. So how do you do it?
Randon's got a whole tackle shop.
Yeah. Brett, you've seen it.
I've seen it. Yeah.
I've got a Minnow Master bait tank system, and it's got these filters in there. It's got a chiller to keep the water cool. It's kind of a whole big setup, but realistically, all a guy really needs to keep shiners alive is fresh moving water and enough room for them. So what I had before my bait tank now is I had an old chest freezer, and I would just trickle water in one side with a capped over, screened over drain on the other side, and the water would just kind of continually stay fresh, and my well water's 50 degrees, so that's perfect temperature. So the one thing about shiners is they're very temp sensitive. You know, if you pull them out of a creek that's 50 degrees and you put them in water in your garage that's 57, they're gonna die. So you got to be really close with that. But it's a little bit of a learning curve, but you can do it. I'll keep my minnows alive probably till the middle of June. So
have you ever used like G juice or something that these tournament anglers will use to keep their fish alive in live wells?
I've got some stuff called Better Bait.
Okay.
It's like a blue crystal stuff that you put in your water mixed in. I don't use it at my tanks at home, but I use it in my coolers in my truck when I'm transporting to and from the lake. And I'll even keep some in the boat because during tournaments, it actually helps with some of the fish. It just calms them down and keeps them a little more lively. So that's a great option. But at home, when you're trickling fresh water in, all you're going to do is run that stuff right out the drain pipe anyway. Sure. So it doesn't there.
Sure.
All right. Well, Randon, if people want to do some fishing with you this summer, do you have some guide openings?
We do. We're pretty booked up till the end of June. But after that, we open up, and I think it's going to be a really good year. It's shaping up to be a lot like last year. And I think it's going to be really good. So, yeah, if you guys want to fish with me, the best way to do it is just give me a call at 218-640-0158. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook or lockjawguideservice.com.
Lockjaw Guide Service up in Otter Tail Lakes Country. Randon Olson, thanks for the time today. Good luck on the opener this weekend.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Did you know there are more than 1,000 lakes in Otter Tail County?
Yep, and I'm going to fish as many as I can. I'm an outdoorsy otter. Nothing beats a full day of fishing for me. The lakes of Otter Tail County give me plenty of options to lower my boat and snag the perfect catch. Not an outdoorsy otter? No problem. Otter Tail County has something for everyone. You just need to find your inner otter.
To find your inner otter, go to OtterTailLakesCountry.com. Northern Minnesota's Walleye Factory is a year-round world-class fishing destination. The perfect getaway this summer is just a short drive to Lake of the Woods. Fish Big Traverse Bay, the Rainy River, or visit the unique Northwest Angle. To catch big fish, you have to go where the big fish are. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com. All right, now it's time to head up to Lake of the Woods to check in with Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism. Joe, how you doing?
Brett, I'll tell you what, it's the opener's coming soon. Doing really good.
Last time I saw you, we were at the Minfish Summit, and that does not look like the same place.
Yeah. Well, you could probably make correlations, right? No, actually, today I'm at Bugsy's on Bostic, and I'll just give you a look at the inside of the resort here. It's every resort up at Lake of the Woods has its own ambiance, and this resort's a cute little resort right on Bostic Bay, and right now they're catching northerns out front, and it's just a neat little place. And every resort again has its own culture, its own look in the bar, and it's just kind of neat. But we
wait a minute,
that Minfish
Joe.
thing,
Dan, I saw a Touch Tunes in the background there.
Oh,
Joe, you might get some background music played for you.
Hang on, let me pull the app up. Start playing some songs.
What songs are those?
Whatever. What do you want to hear?
You'll find out.
Let's see if we can get some Touch Tunes credits going. I can play them from here. What do you want to hear? Let's take listener requests.
Oh, I see the Touch Tunes. Yeah.
Yes, I could play music from here in the bar.
That's a thing, Joe. Like people will find out you're at a bar somewhere when they're at home, and they'll pull up the Touch Tunes app and play songs for you. Not always the kind of songs you want to hear, if you know what I mean.
Oh, how funny. I got to remember that one. I've never really thought of that, but now I'm going to keep that in the back pocket.
So what were you doing up there right now? A little bit of fishing and some work?
Yeah, no, just I'll tell you what it is. We do what's called every year, that light idea way. Every year we do what's called a resort stakeholder meeting. And basically what we do is bring together, resorts, guides. DNR Fishery does a state of the fishery report. We do DNR enforcement, Coast Guard, Border Protection, Soil and Water Conservation District. I mean, a whole bunch of agencies come together, and we have one big powwow. And we normally have one on the south shore of Lake of the Woods, and we have one at the northwest angle, just because the topics are sometimes very different. Up at the northwest angle, it gets into a lot more of regulations and different things about crossing the border, being that you have to travel through Canada if you're going to drive up to the northwest angle. So just and consequently, up there's Canada Border Services Agency that comes into play, Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources, the Canadian Consulate, things like that. So we'll also have, I think, some representation coming from, I believe, possibly Senator Tina Smith's office, Senator Klobuchar. I'm not sure if Congressman Stauber's representative is going to be here, but we get a whole myriad of people, and it's pulling people together. It's about communication. It's about FaceTime with one another. It's about being prepared on the water, especially with the Coast Guard and the DNR. It's just one big powwow. Certainly, the state of the fishery is very important, being that we're such a big fishing destination. So with the DNR, they'll talk about their most recent test netting. They'll talk about their creel surveys, how much traffic on the lake. Any rule changes that they foresee in the future, just things like that. And again, it's just one big powwow that helps people to be in the know, and it's very helpful.
Have you heard how the lake is doing or anything like that? Or has there been any research out yet?
Yeah, I had a chance. I'm on the Lake of the Woods Fisheries Input Group, And we had a chance to see a presentation, and everything looks real good. We had, I would say, our fishing this last late winter especially was a little bit tough. And I think part of that is, in talking to different people, we believe the fish are there in many cases. We think that a lot of the traffic is pushing fish. We did have a record high water year. In past years, when we have record high water, when that water pushes through so much water, we've noticed that some of the bait got pushed north. So did a lot of the fish and followed the bait. So there could be a lot of things going on. The fishery itself, the DNR believes, is healthy. It's sustainable. Certainly helps that we have that slot limit, Brett, of 19.5 to 28 that you got to release. But it's funny. We'll get out there and we'll get some saugers. You get some occasional walleyes in February, end of February, March, and then some people hit it good. They get in a good pot of fish. That's great. But we get into May, and all of a sudden we'll go out there in boats and whack limits after limits and have to let fish go. And you're like, where were these fish come March? Where were those fish hiding? And it kind of happens every year. But so far the fishery looks to be pretty good. But this is information that it's good to come from biologists, right? Because there's so much stuff flying around on the internet. There's so many, keyboard experts, as they call them. And, they put out messaging that in some cases isn't even true. I'll give you a good one. People talk about barotrauma. And barotrauma, of course, is when you're reeling up fish from deep water and you release them and they don't make it. Well, that's a real thing, and we have to pay attention to that. But, when people talk about reel up your fish real slow and then they're going to live, that's a fallacy. The way a fish overcomes barotrauma is with blood gases. It would take literally hours for a fish to balance out. You can't reel up a fish slow enough, the DNR biologists tell us. So once again, you see those rumors out there. What we want to do is we want to find out what is real and then communicate that to anglers, and that's part of our effort today.
We learned a lot about that barotrauma research at that Minfish Summit last week. Really, really interesting stuff. I think a lot of us have heard about barotrauma. We've seen it before, but there are a lot of fallacies or not enough research out there. Maybe that's been done to educate all the anglers on what you can do, how you can prevent it, if you can help a fish afterwards, if there's anything we can do. So there's more studies coming, and we're actually gonna have some of those guys that did those studies on this show in the future to learn a little bit more about barotrauma. And Joe, I want to talk about the fishing opener coming up at Lake of the Woods and how that'd be a great place to go. But I want to just jump ahead about a month because we're really excited. Dan and I are going up there at the beginning of June, and obviously we fished the Rainy River here in April. And maybe we'll fish the Rainy. We did pretty well on walleyes while we were up there. We caught plenty. And then we're going to fish the south end of the lake in June for a couple of days. And then we're going to go up to the northwest angle and fish up at the angle for a couple of days. So we're going to hit pretty much the three main areas of Lake of the Woods here within a relatively short time, maybe all in one trip. So I'm excited to kind of experience the diversity of the fishery.
Oh, I'm excited for you. I mean, we talk about it all the time, but I mean, well, you guys have been in the basin, and that June bite's going to be cool because you know what? You'll be able to jig them then, and that's going to be probably the main, method to catch walleyes. But then, you'll be able to start pulling spinners in, and certainly cranks are in play all the time. And, it's going to be great. And then it's going to be cool because when you go from the basin bite, fishing big open water, I think where you're going to be fishing, you'll be on the edge of some reefs potentially. Then you're going to go up to the angle. And of course, it's interesting because when you go to the northwest angle, now that's where the 14,552 islands of our lake begin. There's so much more structure. There's neck down areas, there's bays, underwater points, sunken islands. I mean, there's so much structure. It's just very different fishing. And it's more multi-species, to be honest with you. I mean, you're going to have, pike and muskies and bass being caught while you're fishing walleyes, So it's two wonderful parts of two incredible fisheries, two very different fisheries. And I'm just excited for you to do both.
Now, at times, people that fish the angle, they'll go into the Canadian side and fish some of the Canadian waters up there since you're so close up there. What does if somebody was going to do that, what do they need to have?
That's a great question. So, really, if you're gonna go fish, if you're gonna stay at the northwest angle of Minnesota, stay at one of our nice resorts up there, and then just boat, literally a stone's throw into Ontario waters to fish, all that great Ontario water. All you need is an Ontario fishing license. You do not have to call into Canada Customs, if you are not touching land, anchoring, mooring, exchanging goods or services. So if you're just going to go there and boat and fish, and then boat back into the U.S., you don't have to check through on customs. That has made life very easy. The thing you do have to remember is that, Ontario rules apply, and it's Ontario Zone 5. So when you go over there, no live bait, no dead bait, no bait that was ever alive at all can be brought over the border into Canada. So our customers have been using plastics with good success. So that's one thing. The other thing is just know that there's a different fish limit over there. Typically, it's going to be 2 fish per day. I think you can keep one walleye over 18.1 inches. Obviously, check the regulations. The rules are just a little different over on the Ontario side, so just be aware of that when you go over there. But the fishing over there is absolutely incredible, and you'll be fishing by yourself. You won't see any other boats. Watch out when you're driving the boats and going through the islands, because sometimes you see deer swimming, bear swimming. A lot of eagles, loons, different kind of waterfowl are nesting up there. To give an example, some of the guys up there, when they're fishing muskies early in the year, they'll use topwaters to imitate small ducks. The ecosystem up there is incredible. And the fishery it's just super good. It's really interesting. I've done some guiding on the Ontario side, and that's not my specialty. I don't know it like the guides of the Northwest Angle do at all. Yeah. But when I have guided up, I just went fishing. Knowing structure, knowing walleyes, and we did just fine, and you're going to have a great time.
Well, let's talk about Lake of the Woods for the opener. I know people might think it's really busy up there. It's maybe not as busy as people might realize, so there will be a lodging available, and it might not be, combat fishing on the lake, although that's a big lake. It's generally not too much combat fishing. But I'm wondering, if people are going to be up there, Joe, how much fishing do you think they'll be doing? Will some guys be catching fish in the river? Will be outside of 4 Mile Bay through the Gap? Where do you think people will be catching fish for the opener?
Well, I think most people, if they have their choice, they will probably go into 4 Mile Bay and the lake. Traditionally, there's going to be a pile of fish out there, and that's where they're going to be. Now, I'll first talk about the Rainy River area. Most people are going to fish 4 Mile Bay. They're going to go in the lake. If it's a nice day, if it's super windy, they'll stay in the river. There's 42 miles of navigable Rainy River. So if a person has, let's say, a 14 or 16-foot boat, and you're like, man, I don't want to tackle Lake of the Woods in that smaller boat, go fish the 42 miles of the Rainy River, because it's going to have a ton of walleyes in there. In addition, you can fish pike year-round, and the sturgeon season goes through May 15th. So you're going to have a couple of days left over to fish sturgeon yet. That's one really good option. Otherwise, they're going to be staged out in front of the Lighthouse Gap, out in front of Pine Island. And then, of course, the Morris Point Gaps comes out of a Bostic Bay, which is behind me. This Bostic Creek flows and comes through the Morris Point Gap. So those two areas around Pine Island are really good. And then you go down the shoreline to the west, and you go down to Zipple Bay. And look at the structure out in front of Zipple Bay. There's rock piles. It transitions to mud. It's just so good. And then as you start going west to Long Point, there'll be small rock rubble that begins just to the west of Zipple Bay. And then you start getting to Long Point. Number one, you have a point that sticks way out into Lake of the Woods. That's good in its own right. And of course, there's different, you can see in the map there's little nooks and crannies that when you zoom in, there are spots on spots on spots on spots. And that's why you can fish. There's so many areas to fish. And it's not like all the walleyes in the system are going to be doing the same thing. There's going to be some walleyes that are adjacent to the shoreline structure. Some will be sitting out in that deep mud picking away at Roman schools of bait fish. There's different schools of walleyes doing different things. As you go around the corner, you got Rocky Point, and of course that's where Artisans is. And even right out in front of there, you got you got shoreline structure, you got reefs out there. Archie's, Mark's Reef, Paul's Reef, Lem's Reef, Artisans Reef. I can go on and on. There's so many reefs out there. DNR Reef, 5 Mile. It's endless. So many good. Now, that's on the south shore of Lake of the Woods. When you get up to the Northwest Angle, I'll tell you, heading up to the angle, that Knighton Bridges Island area, which is about 20 miles north, just south east of Gardner. There you go. And I'll tell you what, those islands, actually, fishing adjacent to those islands is normally very, very good. And those reefs are going to be holding fish too. Sliding up to Garden Island, Garden Island's always a fish magnet. And then up in the angle, you got shallow water. It's like a darn hatchery up there. It's a nursery. You got great spawning grounds. Those fish are going to be, post spawn, most likely, and they're going to be fishing. They're going to be adjacent to the shorelines and those points, and neck down areas too. And then, of course, your bay is up there. If a person wants to take a break from traditional jigging walleyes and go cast bays, heck, you'll get multi-species in those bays this time of year. It's just an exciting time. And, now through June is such a good jig bite on Lake of the Woods. You get out in an area where there's a bunch of walleyes and saugers, you anchor up, and you jig over the side of the boat with a jig in a frozen emerald shiner or a fathead or a rainbow. And I'll tell you what, it can be lights out.
That's it. I'm canceling my work trip this weekend. We're going to Lake of the Woods.
Good. Let me hold you to that. Which time you want to meet? Where should we meet? And let's just go kill some freaking walleyes, shall we? I say kill some walleyes. I got to be careful. Let's get enough for a meal. Let's get enough for a nice meal.
Let's clarify.
And what we're going to do is we're going to let all the others go. We'll take some pictures, but you know what? We'll let the others go. Let's go get some nice ones. Some are going to be in the slot. Maybe we'll get some over 28. Let's get some good pictures. We'll get those fish back and come in, have a nice dinner, and feel good about the day.
Dan, you are kind of going up there, aren't you? Maybe.
Yeah, we'll see how the weather plays. I've got a few different plans, but the goal is to get there around or shortly after the opening day for a little bit, but we'll see. That's all weather permitting.
Well, Joe, if people want to plan a trip up there.
That Danny's kind of sneaky. You notice how he never really tells us where he's going, where he's fishing, what he's doing.
Well,
just a little sneaky that way.
I'm going to film the whole thing, so it won't be very secret once we're done. But
Yeah.
I don't want to make any promises.
I have to tell you, I was on a central Minnesota lake. This wasn't Lake of the Woods, but I was on a central Minnesota lake with my cousin, and he happened to catch a 30.5-inch walleye on a central Minnesota lake. And of course, you can see all the cabins behind us. So, of course, I went and blurred out all the cabins behind us before I submitted the pictures for a leak.
Gotta be secretive. Gotta protect those fishing spots, Joe. All right. Well, if people want to learn more about Lake of the Woods, maybe come up there for the opener or plan a trip this summer, what should they do?
You know what? Hey, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.